Does God exist? Many of you already have an answer to the question I just posed. The purpose of this project, for me at least, was to redefine my answer to arguably the most important question regarding human existence. As a disclaimer, I do not want to tell anybody what to believe, think, or do. Rather, this project is designed to re-examine the question of God's existence and to challenge your belief on God, whether you believe or not. In this video, I will examine the evidence for and against the existence of God and attempt to define the nature of God using physics and philosophy. The simplest argument for God's existence is called the unmoved mover argument. To understand this argument, you must first understand Newton's third law, which states that every reaction must have an equal and opposite reaction. These reactions create a chain which extends into the past and right up to the creation of our universe or the Big Bang. The unmoved mover is the initial action in this chain, but because it is the first action, no other action was necessary to initiate it. This is similar to a long line of dominoes, with the first being pushed by a finger. God would be the unmoved mover because he existed without any other actions necessary for his creation. This proof would be disproved if you could prove that time exists infinitely into the past and the Big Bang never happened. The Big Bang theory, the best model that modern physics has for the beginning of the universe. In the Big Bang theory, the universe began as a nearly infinitely dense point called the primeval atom. This atom expanded with tremendous force over an extremely short time. The theory is backed up by the existence of CMB radiation. Cosmic microwave background radiation, or CMB, was the first verification of the Big Bang. CMB is almost evenly distributed in all directions and is independent from any star or other energy source, strongly indicating the Big Bang. Dr. Thorsten, a physicist, explained that the CMB is a snapshot of the oldest light in our universe, imprinted on the sky when the universe was just 3,800 years old. It shows tiny temperature fluctuations that correspond to regions of slightly different densities, representing the seeds of all future structures, the stars and galaxies today. Physics seems to indicate a clear beginning of the universe, which completely validates the unmoved mover argument. The next theory for God's existence is called the anthropic principle. The anthropic principle is a line of reasoning that looks at the overall improbability of an anthropic or life-bearing universe. Our universe operates with intrinsic mathematical values that define the relationship between matter and space. If these values, called universal constants, were not fixed, the universe could not maintain the order necessary for complex structures such as life to form. These constants have been discovered through observation and are an integral part of physics calculations, like the universal gravity constant, which describes the gravitational pull between two bodies. These equations are constant throughout the universe, and if they varied by even extremely small amounts, the universe would look and behave radically different than it does today. The sheer improbability of an anthropic universe forming on its own was calculated by Roger Penrose, a famous physicist, to be 1 in 10 raised to the 10 raised to the 123rd power. This improbability indicates that some sort of intelligent creator was necessary to initiate the universe so that life could exist. A simpler way to explain the anthropic principle is through this analogy. Imagine that a scientist puts a monkey in a room with a typewriter and asks it to type out Hamlet. The monkey will most likely just bang around on the keys and create nonsense, but there is an extremely small possibility that the monkey will indeed type Hamlet. Now imagine that the researcher comes back 2 weeks later and actually finds Hamlet completely typed out. The researcher now can come to two conclusions. The first conclusion is that somehow the monkey sat down and in one try typed Hamlet without hitting any wrong keys. The second conclusion is that someone else, with a great knowledge of Shakespeare, entered the monkey's room and typed Hamlet for the monkey. Both of these situations require some sort of belief. It simply requires less belief to conclude that someone else helped the monkey. The same thing is true for the anthropic principle. You can believe that God created the universe or not, but believing in God seems like the more logical conclusion. It is the direct refutation to the anthropic principle called the multiverse theory. The multiverse theory states that there are an infinite number of universes, each with a slightly different form of reality. This theory neatly bypasses the anthropic principle because it claims that just as there are an infinite number of universes where life doesn't exist, there are also an infinite number of universes where life does. The sheer number of possibilities are overwhelming. The sheer number of possibilities for different universes are overwhelming. I recently watched a Family Guy episode called Road to the Multiverse that did a great job illustrating how ludicrous the multiverse theory is. In this episode, Stewie creates a universe-hopping device that allows him to view the Earth on different universes. He travels to a universe where the roles of dogs and humans are reversed, another universe where everyone lives as the Flintstones, and another where everything has been Disneyified, and so on. According to the multiverse theory, not only are all these possibilities for universes presented by Family Guy valid, they actually exist. There is no way to either disprove or prove this theory, but it does violate Occam's razor. Occam's razor basically states that nature favors simple solutions to complex ones. So, when faced with two contradictory theories, the simpler theory is considered correct unless other evidence is presented. The high probability of God's existence that is indicated by physics does not give many hints to what God is. Spinoza, a philosopher, defined God as a singular, self-subsistent substance, with both matter and thought being attributes of such. Spinoza claimed that a relationship with God came from the position that one is part of an infinite and interdependent organism. Spinoza also believed that everything is a derivative of God and also intrinsically interconnected. God, according to Spinoza, has an infinite number of attributes, or aspects of God's intelligence, and modes, physical things that stem from the attributes. Spinoza's model for God is extremely similar to the unconditioned reality model of God posed by metaphysics. There are two types of realities in the field of metaphysics. The first is a conditioned reality that is dependent upon another reality for its existence or occurrence. The second is an unconditional reality that does not depend on any other reality for its existence or occurrence. A reality is defined as any individual, particle, field, wave, structure, or physical law. For example, a cat is a conditioned reality because it relies on cells for its existence. Without the cells, the cat would not exist. Similarly, the cat's cells depend on molecules and their resulting structures. The molecules depend on atoms, while the atoms depend on neutrons, protons, and electrons. These particles can be further subdivided by quarks. This chain theoretically continues on to the last most fundamental condition, and is an example of a conditioned reality. The last most fundamental condition must be a conditioned reality whose conditions are not fulfilled. Because this last condition of the cat is still within a conditioned reality, it would be a conditional reality whose conditions are not fulfilled, making it an unconditional reality. This means that the highest level of simplicity must be the unconditional reality. Therefore, all things within the conditional reality, for example the cat, interact with the unconditional reality on every level. So by applying the principles that one associates with an unconditional reality to God, the following conclusions can be made about the nature of God. God has infinite power and no limits. God exists everywhere because he is the most simplistic form of reality, and must continuously and conscientiously hold our conditional reality together. This project has convinced me that God most likely exists. However, I would like to encourage you to truly look into the question of God's existence and ultimately come to your own conclusion. Thank you very much.